Welcome to another episode of Lucas Live. I'm excited to be here with you guys once again. We have a wonderful guest. Do I say we have a wonderful guest every day? Of course I say we have a wonderful guest every day because we only bring on the best of the best on Lucas Live. It's going to be a great show today. We have the wonderful, lovely Miss Amber Ivey, who is running for the congressional seat once held by the honorable, well-known, very successful Elijah Cummings. And sadly, he passed away last year. And now there's some change coming. We hope and we believe that there's some change coming there in Congress, and she's going to talk to us about that and why she's running. And she's running as an independent, not a Democrat, not a Republican, but an independent. We got to talk about that. What is that about? What are you doing? What are you thinking? What's going on? We're going to talk to her about politics. We're going to talk to her about life. We're going to talk to her about life in D.C. versus where she lives. We're going to talk about a lot of great stuff. So don't miss this. If you're watching this by replay, stay tuned. Stay right here. Stop fast forwarding. Stop doing other. Just buckle up, sit down, get into this. This is going to be a great conversation. As you guys come into the broadcast, as always, make sure you share this. Even if you're watching by replay, go ahead, hit the share, throw it up there so other people can see it because they might have missed it too. And they're like, I'm so glad you shared it. I can't believe I missed Lucas Live. I didn't know if it was on in the morning or the evening or the evening or the morning or what time that do be going on, right? But here we are. We're back 7 p.m. our time where it all started, okay? And I think we're like at our 3-month anniversary. I don't know if it's today or tomorrow. I should keep better tabs on this. I'm just so busy doing it, but anyway, we're celebrating, okay? It's a celebration no matter what. Today is a day of celebration. So let's celebrate today. We're excited about the show today. Can't wait to have you guys. Welcome to our wonderful guests. Again, share this broadcast. Hit the hearts, likes. If you're watching on Periscope, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're coming at us from, we welcome you to this. Make sure you're doing whatever you can to like it, to share it, to comment, to engage this broadcast. We had a wonderful episode yesterday morning. We had our first in-studio guest, co-host, not even a guest. She was a co-host. Our wonderful producer, Miss Amanda Dukes, she did pretty good. I don't know. You guys tell me. If you guys think she did good, let me know in the comments. If you think she did pretty good and we think she should come back, it seems like she was okay. I'm going to give her, she was cool. You know what I mean? I think she was all right. So, Shamar, welcome to the show. Felicia, thank you so much for being here on LinkedIn. We're so excited to have you guys. This is a wonderful, wonderful night. This is a really cool show. Can't wait to introduce my guest. We had a wonderful conversation here before the show. We were laughing and having a great time and talking about all kinds of issues and things. And she said she has this funny, silly side, and she has this serious side. So we might meet two different people tonight. I don't know what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what she's going to do. If she starts acting too crazy, though, I got y'all. I'm going to protect y'all because y'all my peoples. You know what I'm saying? But I think she's going to be good. I think you guys are going to love her. I think you guys are going to be fascinated by what she shares today. So we're really, really excited about that. I also want to let you guys know, if you guys have not been following me, and shout out to Sharice Grantham, who's on here, who shared. Sharice actually referred our guest today to the show. Now, a lot of people tell me about a lot of people. A lot of people tell me about a lot of people. Everybody knows somebody. And they're like, hey, you should have my cousin on because my cousin got a dog with 3 legs. And I want him to tell you about my dog with 3 legs. And he's a rascal. I tell you should have him on the show. And I'll be like, that sounds good. Maybe, I don't know. I don't got so many days. I don't know. Right? But Sharice sent Amber's information over and shared her story a little bit with my producer because I'm not making all the decisions anymore, ladies and gentlemen. You got to turn over control in order to grow. So she gave it to my producer. And we looked into it and we talked about it. And we're like, we got to have her on the show. So it's time, ladies and gentlemen. We don't want to wait until November and think we're going to be ready to vote. If we're not prepared, if we're not registered, if we don't know the issues, if we haven't thought about these things, we're not going to be ready to vote. Okay. Now, you can't vote for every congressional district. It all depends on where you're at and all those things. But you need to know. Okay. You need to know what's going on. You need to be engaged in the political process. You don't have to love politics to be engaged in the political process, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so make sure you guys are engaged. Make sure you guys are listening and learning today. Now, I want to share with you guys, a couple things. So couple things I got going on right now. Now, you may be watching this years in the future, and you're like, is he doing this now? I don't know if I'll be doing this now. I really don't know. I am currently doing a LinkedIn training. On July 18th, 2020, I'll be doing a LinkedIn training for people who are interested in updating their profile, not only learning how to have what's called an all-star profile. Yes, LinkedIn rates your profile. And if your profile's not up to a certain level, they're not going to show your profile to so many people. They're not going to show it to certain people. So you may be looking for jobs or business opportunities or whatever, and you're like, why am I not connecting to people? Or why am I not seeing those people to connect to? Or why are those people not seeing me? Why are those recruiters not seeing me? Because you don't have an all-star profile. You haven't done everything you need to do to get your profile right. So first things first, I want to help you get your profile right. The next thing I want to do is help you come up with a strategy for how to connect with people in business or your potential customers or whoever it may be. Yes, I've had success in this. I keep telling people I got a wonderful job for a wonderful consulting company because of LinkedIn. I got recruited to a company making over 6 figures because of LinkedIn. I got the foreword written to my book by the wonderful Stéphane Labossière, who wrote many books, including God Where's My Boaz, that is an Amazon bestseller, still selling all the time right now. He wrote a book called He Who Finds a Wife. He wrote a book called He's Lying, Sis. He's lying, sis. He's breaking it down. Shout out to my man, Stéphane Labossière. I met him through LinkedIn. I went after him. I was looking for somebody, trying to get to know some people, saw him on there. I wanted somebody to help me as I was developing my relationship coaching business in 2015. Here he came, mentored me, helped me, worked with me, and wrote the foreword to my book. LinkedIn, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to grow a business or if you want to grow your career, you want to be set up on LinkedIn. It's all over my profile on Facebook. You can message me. You can reach out to me if you're interested in LinkedIn training. I am also offering, on that same day, July 18th, personal branding for those who are single, who are looking to date, and you want to attract your target market. I was a marketing major once upon a time, and it wasn't that long ago. And I studied how businesses intentionally put themselves out there to attract the audience that they want, to attract the buyers that they want, to attract the consumers that they want. Somebody out there is single, and they're like, everybody who's in my DMs is a bum. Okay? Or my DMs are dry. Nobody's in my DMs. What am I doing wrong, right? And you want some help, you want some coaching. I'm going to be doing that. I'm also going to be doing some social media profile reviews for some people. That'll be extra, but I have a few people who've, because they joined early, I'm going to be doing something special for them, for those who signed up early. So check it out now. I'll be posting the link again. It's on my Facebook page. You can check it out. It's on my Instagram as well. So check it out if you're interested, or reach out to me. I want to offer that service. I promise $100, $99 for the LinkedIn training. You don't know how much money I made because of LinkedIn. I can't even tell you. I did a virtual keynote today for a company. A virtual keynote. Virtual, okay? It was... I can't tell you how cool it was to do it, and I can't tell you what you might be able to build a company if they bring you in for a keynote or for a training or to sell your products or services or whatever it may be. Okay, so I want you guys to be aware of that. I want you guys to know how to do that. So I'm going to be doing that training as well as the personal branding for singles and helping them out. Make sure you check that out, okay? And some of you messaged me. Somebody in here messaged me today. I'll be getting back to you real soon. So I'm really excited about it. Brooke D, what's up, my man? Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here. Make sure you guys are sharing this broadcast. I don't want to delay any longer. I want to bring on our wonderful guest. I'm so excited to talk to her. She's just like a glowing person. She has a glowing personality. She is serious about helping the community and especially helping youth. Let's welcome to the show, Miss Amber Ivey. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm so excited to have you here today. So excited to talk to you. There's so much to talk about right now. We are in quite a political climate, right? There's a lot going on. Okay, so right. I just want to start, and we're going to get into your life and who you are. First of all, tell us about what seat you're running for, and why in the world did you decide to throw your hat in the ring and say, I want to run for a seat in the U.S. Congress?
So I'm running for Maryland's 7th congressional seat, and our seat is very popular around the nation because the Honorable Elijah Cummings held that seat before he passed away last October. So when he passed away, it was hard on the community because he is a man of Baltimore, and Baltimore and those who live here really love Elijah Cummings and everything he's done for the people here. So that seat, of course, a lot of folks considered jumping in and trying to figure out if they wanted to run for it. So at the time when it happened, I was not planning on running for office anytime soon.
Okay.
But one of the things that concerned me for the city I live in is that we have the same outcomes year after year after year. Actually, in some cases, it's getting even worse. And I couldn't sit around and just let my city continue to go in a direction it's going. And Maryland's 7th Congressional District, for those who don't know, is Baltimore City, Howard County, and Baltimore County. So it's a group of very different places that are all merged together under the title of Maryland 7th Congressional District. So for me, it was really seeing what was not happening in our community, how oftentimes in this community, we are majority Black in Baltimore City, at least. A lot of times folks come to us and say, hey, we want your vote, but then nothing happens. So as a person who identifies as an independent, I was concerned because I remember in 2012, one of our major roads, which almost a major road in every community, is Martin Luther King Drive.
Right.
And on that road, literally it just said vote Democrat. All these signs were vote Democrat. Not who, not what they were doing, not what they were going to bring to the community.
Wow.
They literally just put 50 plus signs, vote Democrat, down the median. And I sat there and I was like, why? Like, not to say I'm anti-Democrat or anti-Republican, but I'm like, you didn't give anyone a reason. And you're just assuming that people deserve to give you their vote simply because they're Black.
Right.
They wouldn't do that in other communities. So things like that made me really start to think about how can I help to impact the city that I live in. And when the seat opened up, I was like, you know what? If not now, then when? If not me, then who? And I decided to step into it.
Wow. I mean, that is major. It's a major seat. It's well known. I mean, most people don't know who sits in what seat and who the person was that was there before, but obviously Elijah Cummings is a name known around the nation for the work that he's done and the things that what he meant to, especially the Black community. So for you to fill that void, who are you to fill that void, Amber Ivey? Like, I mean, those are big shoes to fill. So
what I can't do is fill the void of a Black male individual who was a civil rights leader. I will never fill that void. So that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is bring Amber Ivey to the seat and fill my void, or my space, my lane. And what that looks like is I'm a person who is very focused on some of the issues that are coming in the future. We're a very globalized economy. Technology is booming. We're using technology right now to have this interview when you literally live on the other side of the world, right? And we're not the world, but you know what I mean, the country.
Why she play me like I live in Iceland or something? She's like, you live on the other side of the moon. Because I use Skype, right? Because anyway, we go.
It's Skype.
Y'all don't know. Listen, let me tell y'all real quick. In order to put on this show, it looks really good to you guys. The platform that I use is called Ecamm Live. Shout out to Ecamm Live. Ecamm Live currently doesn't have a way to bring guests on unless you use Skype. And every time I get a guest and I'm like, you got to download Skype, you got to use a Skype link. They're like, where are you from? What is this, Back to the Future? What are you doing? And Amber was no better. She really gave me a hard time today, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, all right, so
after I remember how to spell Skype and type it in, no, but seriously, I really am future focused, technology focused. And the thing about technology is, with the current COVID epidemic, right, the only businesses that are doing well right now are, one, essential, or two, they have a technology play, meaning you can work from home or you can use technology to still have access to that business. And that's the reality of the future. There are more jobs that are going to be technology focused. Like in our district alone, we're going to lose 43% of our jobs due to automation in the next 10 years. And nationally, that number is about 38% of jobs are going to be automated by technology. Like Amazon is already testing out stores that have no people. You can walk into them with your cell phone. It identifies you, knows what you pick up, and know that you walk out. And with COVID, companies know they're gonna have to get leaner. A lot of folks lost a lot of money in this pandemic. So if we know these things are changing, and we know the jobs that are at risk are normally low-wage workers, as well as men, or jobs that are that men are normally in. So if we know these things are happening and folks aren't thinking about that. So I come with the perspective that's thinking about the issues of the future, the issues of now, as well as the issues that are in the future. And we have to think about how our families are going to operate, how we need to make sure we have healthcare outside of our job if we know jobs are changing and people are going to have to likely change skills. How do we think about work and training our kids, making sure our kids have the tools they need to access technology? Here in Baltimore City and Baltimore County, our kids didn't have internet and our kids did not have digital devices when we lost when they went out of school.
Wow.
That is a problem. They are not going to be able to compete. Yeah, and that's the only way you could do homework was at home. So if you didn't have devices in the county, they were sending them paper homework a couple months after the fact, after the kids had been out of school.
Wow.
So there's certain things that we have to get prepared for. And if our leaders aren't thinking about the issues of the immediate tomorrow, there's a problem. And that's something that Elijah Cummings was not focused on because that was not his era. But we do need to think about the issues of the next era. That's why I say I will never fill those shoes and I would never even try to. But what I can say is I can pave out a new road for the problems that we're going to face and the things that we do need to make sure we're investing in right now.
Amber, Ivey, you are fire. Like, what is going on? You're not playing. Like, this is not something. Now, let's talk about this road real quick. And there is a great question in the comments that I want to get to that.
Okay.
Sean Doherty, I believe. I see your question. I will get to that. Dave Woods, welcome to the show. I see you here, my friend. Thank you, guys. So, this whole political thing. Now, I talked to you before the show, and I was like, oh, so you love politics? And your answer was?
No.
No, you don't love politics.
No.
So you don't love politics, but you're going into a huge political arena, and I don't. But you're so polished, like you really get what you want to do. Where did this come from? What shaped you into this person who could so clearly articulate what you want to see happen in your area?
Right. So first, shout out to all the Army brats or military brats out there. I am a child of two military veterans. And what that means is I moved around a lot as a kid. Every 2 to 3 years, I was moving to a different location. I lived as far west as Arizona, as far east, across the pond, as some folks call it, all the way over to Germany. So as a young person, I always dealt with different types of people and had to learn very quickly how to introduce myself to folks, how to make new friends, how to find common ground and figure those things out really quickly, or your life would suck. Because you can't keep moving around and not have friends for the rest of your life. It's just not going to work out. No, but that has also led into my career, and my career has been focused on government performance. And I've had to work with Democrats and Republicans to get things done. And what I've learned is that most of us have at least one thing in common with someone, and we have to find a thing we have in common to make sure that we can move forward and deal with the really tough issues. If you start with a thing you don't agree with, you'll never get there. So I've always had this just urge to make people work together and want to get things done. I'm an operations person. In private sector, I worked in logistics. So it was always about the quickest way to get things done, the cheapest way to get things done while making sure that people were okay. So it's just something that's in me. As far as talking about it, having conversations about it, this is stuff I'm passionate about. So hopefully that's coming across. This isn't something I'm playing with. I'm not running as an independent to have my name on a ballot just to say, oh, I did something. No, I'm doing this with every single bone in my body and with all the energy that's behind me from folks who are supporting me and the folks who came into this country as enslaved people who are in the grave now saying, you know what, you're going to do something different and you're going to make a change for us.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So much passion. And I think that's something that we're often missing in our politicians is real passion, real concern for the people. It's while I said you were polished, it's polished passion. It is not polished passion, not polished politics. Okay, and that's what we usually see is polished politics, and they say all the right things, but they don't mean it, and you can tell. And they're like, oh yeah, they're reading the teleprompter, and they're going through. This is real to you, and this means something to you. So let me get to the question we had here. I don't want to leave this person out. If anybody else has questions, we had a couple questions. Please go ahead and ask your questions. We'll definitely try to get to your questions. So Sean Doherty said, we haven't increased the size of Congress from 435 since 1911. What will you do to restore proportional representation to the House?
I think that's a very good question, Sean. And I'm going to be honest with you in that the part about being a polished politician, normally a polished politician would answer that question without having the background information. So I can't answer that. That's not something I have thought about, but what I can do is I'll answer based on what I'm thinking about right now as you answer that question. But I don't want you to think I'm making up something and that's something I've been thinking about. I have honestly not been thinking about that. But in one realm I have thought about it is because I live close to DC. And DC is trying to get statehood and has been trying to get statehood for some time. I know Puerto Rico has been trying to get statehood for some time. And as well as folks are looking at how we have the current electoral map and how that's working out. So what I do think we need to do, I think that's something that we should put in law to revisit on a regular basis. I don't think that's something that we should just leave from the early 1900s and say, hey, we think it's working out when we know it's not. If folks are literally losing elections when they have the popular vote and the electorate is not working, I don't think the founders ever meant for it to work that way. I think that was something we've had that glitch happen a few times where it's now time to revisit and say, hey, that's not the way that was ever meant to work. It was meant to work to make sure the vote was balanced, and we need to relook at that map and ensure that we're doing that on a regular basis.
Love it, love it, love it. Sean, thank you so much for your question. We have another question from Mr. Damon Thomas, family and friend to the show. He said, for the unemployed, what industry or area of work should they look into? So they're unemployed right now. You made some good points. What should people be looking into?
I think we have to look at what industries are not going to experience as much automation and technology. So that some of those industries include business, the finance realm are still going to be okay right now. The industries that are not going to be okay are things like food service, even truck drivers are not going to be okay because they have autonomous trucks that they're testing out and possibly will take over that industry. What's also not going to be okay is I blanked. There was another industry I wanted to pull up. But yeah, food service, anything dealing with, what do you call it? Manufacturing, things like that. A lot of technology building in that. But most of the business things are still safe. Lawyering is kind of safe in those fields. But you want to look at accounting, business, finance, and areas where a computer or technology cannot replace the person. If it's something that is automated or a task that is something you can do that's really mundane, more often than not, a technology can be trained to do that. Stuff that requires a little bit more human interaction, whether it's people interaction or education, is going to be very hard for technology to take those skills over. They're going to have to implement artificial intelligence, things like that, to train technology to take those over. So you want to look at fields where it's not a task that could be replicated by a computer very quickly or very easily.
Very, very good. I think that's really important for us to realize, because I do think there's a lot of people who were laid off or furloughed or whatever they were, and they're thinking the floodgates are going to come back open and all those companies are going to say, come back. And some of those companies realized, we don't need you back. Like, we're okay. Yeah. We're leaner. We're making more money. We're still hitting our numbers. Yeah. So people are confused. So as someone running, you're going to have people. So once you win, and your people in your district are going to come to you and say, this isn't right, Amber. I don't care that you knew it was going to happen, and you're telling us about technology, and we need iPads and stuff for our kids. Fine about our kids, but right now my kids don't have a place to do homework if I don't have a home. What would you do to help people who are struggling right now with these layoffs and with everything going on? What should we do to help families?
So I think the big thing, that question is loaded with a lot of things. So I want to first acknowledge that. And those are loaded with issues that will never be solved by me or anyone else in a 2-year time period. I just want to be very honest with that. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say people can do that, because what I hate about people who are running for office is they say all these things they can do when it's not realistic. Congress is a 2-year stint. The end. And that stint is a hard stint of when you're going in, getting to know folks, making sure you're able to get on the right get on the right committees and things like that, and making sure you're building those things. So I want to say that first. But what I can do for that individual is make sure that I have a partnership with the local locality and state. So I used to work for the state of Maryland, which is also in my benefit. And I know people who are at different agencies and things like that. And what I would do is work with my home place where I know that they can move things quicker, to make sure that we do have the places like Department of Housing and Community Development, that they know that we have issues with housing in Baltimore, and working with them on the sidelines while I'm trying to push stuff through in Congress. I just don't want to say it's going to happen in Congress. It's probably not in that time period. But what we can do is go back to our state and our localities, and we can work together to get some of those things done, and then try to also push it with Congress at the same time.
Wonderful. So when you're talking about Congress is a 2-year seat, that's not what we see, right? Don't we? Are people just reelected? Because it looked like these dudes been like that old dude been there since that King was there. He was. What is going on? So what happens there? What are we seeing when it comes to those congressional seats?
So the founders did not mean for us to stay in the seat for that long. They set it up for 2 years because they knew life would change that quickly, that we would need to have an election for Congress every 2 years. The Senate is different, and they understood that, but they knew for representatives that it needs to be a frequent election for frequent turnover. However, we're seeing it doesn't happen that way. And I think part of the reason that happens is a lot of people haven't stepped up in the past to run, and they don't have the money to run. It takes a lot of money to run, or a lot of foot power, right? So you either have a lot of money or you're going to be knocking on every single door in your district to run. And because of that, it limits who can get in. So even though you may have good people who can run for office and are going to do an amazing job, if they don't have, in certain districts, you need to have over $1 million to win and to run. So that's not even a joke. That's real life. And a lot of times people don't even realize that most of your time is spent calling people asking for money. Wow. And when you get into office as a representative, you immediately start fundraising for your next term. Your next run. Wow. Immediately. Like literally, I've seen congressional folks get in, and I'm literally getting fundraising emails. As soon as they win, I'm still getting fundraising emails because they have to collect enough money to run for the seat the next time. This causes a problem because people are now, I believe, focused too much on winning, which I get it because they want to get things done, but then it also limits
their ability to get done. Right.
Yeah, get things done.
You can't get things done if you're raising money on it.
Right. And one thing I love about Virginia, and some people hate it, they have a one-term governor. You're done. So you go in, you get your job done, and you're done. Great. If he's great or she's great, then you're kind of upset. You're like, oh man,
right.
Wish they were here. But also they're not in it to run. They're in it to get things done. And I think Congress also needs term limits. Like you shouldn't be anywhere longer than 8 years.
Yep, the president can't even be there longer than 8 years.
And then this is such a huge part of the country, like it's a whole branch, and so we limit one branch,
right,
but we don't limit the other one. And I get the Supreme Court. That's one where you can be in for life because if you've gotten there, you have the legal chops to do it, and
right.
I get it. But as far as changing laws and things like that, we have people in Congress right now who didn't even know how to answer questions or ask questions of Facebook. Like that is something that's so big and has impacted our elections, impacted the way of life and everything, and they couldn't even ask questions about it during their hearing. So if you have the same people in there, and I'm not talking about age, I mean just being able to get new blood in there. If someone wants to run at 80, go for it, run at 80 or what have you. But if you've been in the same position for 30, 40 years, you're missing something. Like even when you're in your job for so long, you all of a sudden you're not as sharp, you're not thinking about things the same way, you get in your routine, and you're not being as effective as you could be when you're being challenged by other folks who are not in the position for 30 to 40 years.
I mean, I think that's an excellent point. And to me, it is a concern to see these people. I mean, when they go back and show president after president after president dealing with these same jokers, these same people over
every single time.
It's like that dude been around. Like, I mean, man, like that is tough. And then it's tough for them it appears to be tough for them to then change, right, and embrace what's going on, because they fought to write the laws and the rules that set it up to be that old structure. And now you're asking me to tear down my structure for Mr. New Guy who showed up, or Mr. New Lady who came along and wrote a new bill, and they want me to go vote for their bill, which messes up my stuff. That's my legacy. That's not my thing to the people. That's my gift to the world for all times, right? And it's a very dangerous thing. Mrs. Gloria Pope asked a question. She said, due to COVID, we have realized a significant transformation in skills and industry. Can you expound more on that? You've already started talking about that, but the coronavirus, it's caused us to realize that there's a shift now. Help us understand it a little more.
Yeah, so there's a term called the future of work. I invite everyone listening to Google that. There's some cool papers out there on that, but it's called the future of work. What the future of work means is that our economy is going to rapidly change due to technology, due to artificial intelligence, due to quantum computing, and all these other things, that data and all these other things that happen with technology. As a result of that, companies don't have an incentive to keep people working if they can find a cheaper way to do it, right? So and think about it, if you're a business owner, your whole job is to make sure you're profitable. So if you know you can actually implement a technology that is going to improve your business structure and allow you not to have as many people on staff, guess what you're going to do? You're going to do it. Not to say they're going to lay off a lot of people, but a lot of time it happens through attrition. Folks are retiring, folks are leaving, and they're not filling the positions. We see this all the time. It's going to get even worse as more technology comes on board. One example is even in the world of law, lawyers, they did a competition between a lawyer and a computer. The lawyer lost contracts competition on looking at the different contracts and going through contracts to a computer, because a computer can read 10,000 cases. A lawyer can't read 10,000 cases. So when you have that level of technology able to do that type of work, certain jobs and certain skills are going to be moved. So what we have to do is make sure that we're doing our research to see what skills are going to be needed in the economy that we're slowly and quickly approaching at the same time. What skills are going to be needed, and make sure that we're getting training in that. And one of the things I think is important at a congressional level is that we make legislation that allows for incentives for businesses to train people in the skills of the future, and ensure that if they know a skill is leaving, because we know a lot of the skills that are going to leave, and that report, if you look at the future of work, that report has a lot of things in there, but we know what jobs are going to be gone, right? So we know that companies can target those jobs and begin to train people in new skills and make sure that folks don't lose their career if that skill is actually their whole entire job. And we can incentivize those type of things through tax breaks and other things. We can also incentivize individuals to go get the training they need, to make sure that they are able to get the training, go back to school, get a certification or whatever they need to make sure they can also compete. Apprenticeships are a big thing, making sure that we're not teaching our kids the same stuff that we know is not going to be here in the next 10 to 20 years. We should not have certain subjects in school. I'm just being very honest.
Let's talk about it. I feel this. I've been thinking this for.
The kids are not going to use those skills, and we have to like retool and re-engineer how we do education in this country, or we're going to be behind. Because best believe, if you look at some of the schools in China and other places, they are way ahead of us in certain regions and certain cities, way ahead of us what they're doing with their youth and making sure that they're prepared. And we don't want to right now our country creates a brain drain for everyone else, but we don't want other folks to start taking our folks into their country and creating a brain drain here if we are not preparing and making sure that we have what we need in this country.
So talking more about the education and the youth, and that's something you're very passionate about.
Yes.
What is going on with our school systems? I mean, they are antiquated. It does seem like we don't learn what we need to learn, and we're learning things we don't need to learn. I have a hard time telling my kids, like, even cheating now, right? Cheating on a paper. My kids have the ability to go find an answer somewhere, right? And I'm like, isn't that the point of life? Like, we're gonna go find an answer where we can find an answer. Like, I don't want you cheating off your friend next to you, but if you have access, once upon a time it was a book. Now it's the internet or something. It's like, as long as you find the answer, you got the answer, right? Like, real life is not about testing ourselves. Real life is about getting answers and getting things done. So I'm having a hard time with this shift, and now they're working online, so it's even more, access. They're on the internet, and some days you're allowed to research it, and other days that's cheating. I'm like, how? Like, a calculator's a calculator. Can I use it? Like, can I use it or not?
In real life, I would use it.
I would use it. What, I got an abacus? Like, I'm over here just trying to slide. Like, I don't understand this old school way of thinking. Anyway, that's my thought. What is your thought on the future of schooling as you started to talk about? What do we really need to do to shift the schools from the younger ages on up to really prepare our children for the future of work?
Yep. So I'm going to say a few things about this. The first thing is that pre-kindergarten education. My niece is 5 years old. She knows how to use a device better than I would ever know how to use a device. Yes. So imagine a world where we know that these kids are on devices early, whether we agree with it or not. I'm not here to have that conversation.
Right?
But we know that kids are on devices. Imagine a world where kids got a curriculum that started training them early on if their parents are already letting them on devices, and had curriculum to start training them to learn their letters, to learn how to count, to learn basic reading and things like that. We have ways to do that through technology. So the future, in my opinion, with education is we're using the tools that they're already using and playing games with. Like, she's making a cake on her tool. Let's teach her how to read on that tool. Like, forget a cake, forget all the fun little games she has.
Right.
Upgrade ABC Mouse. That's one of the apps.
I love it. Our daughter did ABC Mouse. Shout out to that.
There you go. And make sure that actually is pushing them to a curriculum and getting them to make sure they're having checkpoints to know how well your kid is doing. And we can access that even before they get into school. Yeah. Again, being careful with data privacy and all that, and making sure our kids are safe. All that needs to happen. The other thing is, I think that we failed at, I think they did better when I was in school, was allowing kids creativity and allowing kids to learn how they learn. It is a concern when you put a whole bunch of kids in a classroom. One is an auditory learner, one is a visual learner, one is kinesthetic and needs to actually touch things, and you expect them all to get the same thing out of that class. That's not fair. I believe that kids should be broken up into groups in major classes, not all classes, but in major subject matters like math, science, and English and things of that nature, where they're actually in a class that is based on their learning skill. Because it's very hard if you have situations, especially in like places like Baltimore, where we don't have like some good outcomes in some of the schools. And I think you have to set a kid up as much as possible to do that. Now, do they need to be in classes like that for every single class? No, but for the classes they need to actually get and learn, we need to teach the kid in the way they get it and learn, switch it up sometimes to make sure they can understand it other ways. But for the most part, it's not fair that if your teacher is only an auditory teacher and only teaches you by talking about it, and you're sitting there and then guess what? You probably are not doing as well as your other classmates, when in reality, if you were taught in the way you learn, you could probably beast it and do very, very well. So we have to think about that. Kids also should be in internships in ninth grade. That should be a part of their curriculum. They should already be getting those skill sets way before they get to college. And often for African American youth, we don't have the opportunities to summer or to spend time at our father's friends a company and work during the summer and things like that. Some other groups do have that opportunity, and we need to make sure that all kids are having access to different careers so they can start to understand what career field they want to go into. It doesn't make sense that in 2020 folks are still saying when they get to college, I'm undecided. If their kid is undecided by college, we failed them all the way through. Because in reality, think about your job, right? What you're doing, I said it.
You said it. My mind is blown. Because I think every freshman in college goes to college with no idea because they're a kid and they have no idea what they want to do with the rest of their life, even though we've been asking them since they were 4. But help us understand. Go ahead. I love it.
So what the answer to that is, the job you're doing right now, is it not the thing you're good at and not the thing you're passionate about?
Me? Yes, absolutely.
And most people, if you put people in the job they're passionate about and the skills that they already have naturally, they're going to flourish and do well. Most people who are in jobs right now are in jobs they're not passionate about, they care less about being there, and not even using the degree that they got in the first place. Absolutely. And we know that about the data. Yep. So if we know that you have natural skills that are in you, and there are things that you are driven by and are passionate about, why aren't we tapping into that when the kid is younger? Why are we waiting until the kid is 30 and then try 2-3 degrees, 4 different careers,
and spend a whole bunch of money? Right.
Yeah, spend a whole bunch of money. We don't have to do that. There's ways to understand that stuff early on. And if the kid changes, great. But the kid should have some idea after 18 years on this earth of something they want to do, at least knowing what they're good at, so that they can make decisions based on that. Going through internships, having different roles and jobs like that all throughout their high school career, because that's how we all figured it out. I know when I was in college, I was doing an internship like on a regular basis. I learned what I didn't like and I learned what I liked.
I love it.
Why did I wait to college to do that? That's a very expensive way.
A very expensive experiment.
Very expensive way to learn that. We can learn that early on.
I love it. And then young people are going to college. They're dropping out of college because it's frustrating. It's expensive.
One out of 3.
I didn't know that. 1 out of 3 students.
Yes. They tell you when you go into, at least they did in my freshman class, they said, look to your left, look to your right.
Oh, right. Yep. Fascinating.
So we know that. Why aren't we handling
What are we doing? I love it. That's a good question. Another good question we have here from our friend Sharice Grantham. She said, hello. Can you give us an example of what subjects should be removed? You talked a little bit about some of the things in school right now aren't needed. I think we all have our own opinions. What are your thoughts?
So I don't want to say a subject per, like, just in general should be removed.
Because our kids are listening. Our kids was like, what? They're like, I'm dropping out today.
No, don't drop. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, what I'm saying is, per kid, you may not need certain subjects. I should have been very clear on that. Okay. Some subjects you don't need it. Like, you're not gonna, like, for example, I remember going through differential equations. I finally ended up needing it, but there are certain topics where if you know what you're never gonna go into certain fields, you may not need to take differential equations.
Right.
You just may not need to do that. Most people don't know what the heck that is now, and like, what is she talking about?
I was trying. See, I'm on camera, so I had to sit here and be like, yes, differential equations, exactly.
But there's different classes where it makes sense if your kid knew earlier on their interests, right, and could wet their feet early, then they would know, like, I'm likely going into these types of positions. These types of positions will never need differential equations. I also don't think most folks need them anyway because they're going to teach you in college. It is what it is. But there's just topics like that are like so targeted that folks have on different schedules and things like that. I'm not talking about math, science, biology in the basics. I think everyone should have a grounding in the basics.
Okay.
Like that should just be something that happens. So when we're getting to like high school, we're actually picking other types of more advanced classes and things like that. I think those should be targeted to the person and their career and not something everyone should take.
I love that. I am the parent who is kind of school skeptical. I've grown that over the years, and I'm telling my kids, like, hey, it ain't that serious. Like, not that school's not that serious, not that they shouldn't take their education serious, because I'm not playing. I said that wrong.
School's not that serious.
Oh, like, school's not that serious. You know what? You see how they just went online, and all of a sudden nobody cared? Whatever, it's not that serious. No, it's that serious, but many of the subjects, I'm like, if I don't teach you character, if I don't teach you how to teamwork, if I don't teach you emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-control, social skills.
We don't have any classes on that. Or finances.
parenting, all these. It's like these are the things that make up our life. And meanwhile, I'm learning the Pythagorean theorem. Like, how often am I like, man, what is the hypotenuse of that triangle, man? I'm just trying to hang a picture. If I only knew, right? I'm like, I don't understand. And that's just algebra.
But there are some kids who need that.
There are some kids.
We should make sure they're taking it.
Absolutely.
Majority of folks don't need that. I'm just being honest.
I feel the exact same way. I feel like there's definitely some things they don't need. So
yeah, because I want to say something real quick.
Please.
I agree with you. Like, we're missing out on how to handle a conflict. Kids need that. Like, you need that to be a good human. How to have good character. How to be a nice human being. How to ensure you manage your finances so you actually aren't going into debt, aren't dealing with all these other things that come with that. So there are real life skills that we do need to put in there, but some of that stuff that's more targeted, I don't think we need to focus on that.
I absolutely agree. So we have a question here. Another question from Miss Gloria Pope. She said, do you support moving jobs back to the U.S. instead of relying on international service? Until COVID, most did not realize our pharmaceuticals were heavily produced in China. I didn't know that until COVID, and I was like, what? They were like, some crazy high percentage is produced in China. So do you support moving jobs back to the U.S. instead of relying heavily on international services?
I think we have to look at, in my opinion, when COVID happened, I was like, we definitely need essentials in the country. Like, we need to have essential things we need being produced in our country. Some of the stuff that's more like just likes or nice to haves, I don't care for that stuff as much. Like, if you want to get it from somewhere else, it's not necessary for you to live each day by day. Mm-hmm. But I do think some of those essential things that we do need just to operate as society, those jobs, I would like for them to come back. Just so we can make sure that we're sustainable. It was very frustrating, I know, for some of you all to find out things like China's producing a lot of the pharmaceuticals. They produce a whole bunch of other stuff too. But yeah, also, even if you think about, there's some things that we can't let go of, like there's chips in your phone that are being produced only in one place in the world. That's not going to happen, right? Some things are not just going to come here, but if we focus on our essentials and get our essentials here, we can start there. And I think that when I say essentials, that means what it takes for us to live our lives here. If something like this happens again and we have to shut our borders, making sure we're safe. Because I know most of us were concerned when we had to like figure out how the heck we're getting things like toilet paper or medicine or all these things that all of a sudden in very high demand and we're missing them, and that shouldn't be it. So we need to look at what are essential medicines, bring them back home. That, like, we know there's a high population of people who have diabetes here. There's different things that are that we can actually target and use data to choose what comes back. And then because we're an international world, we're not going to move all jobs back here, but figure it and do it in a way that's focused on what the data says, what we need, and do it that way.
I love it. Now, speaking of COVID-19, the coronavirus, you are seeking a seat during arguably the craziest time in the history of the entire world. Not that there haven't been pandemics before, but we're in the middle of a pandemic in a global economy with social media and hot politics and takes and news and mainstream media and social media and not mainstream. I mean, it is a crazy time in history. A nice time to sit back and not get involved, or a nice time to sit back and just say, I voted, I did my thing. But to step up to try to take on this challenge. Again, back to COVID-19, the coronavirus. What are we doing? What should we be doing? Help us. I think a lot of us are like, should I be staying in? Should I be wearing masks? Should I be quarantined? Should I be like, forget it? Should I be out eating? Should I be?
You're asking a political question.
Somebody else is going to ask this, so let me go ahead and ask it.
I'll answer it, but it's just interesting to me that one that is even termed as a political question, and that's where we are. Yeah. For me, I live with an autoimmune condition. So for me, the way I'm operating is, and also I'm young, so let's say I get COVID. I'm living under the presumption that I don't want to spread it and hurt someone else, and I also don't want to be hurt. So I do wear a mask when I go out. I also live in a city that has a lot of that's majority Black and African American. We know that this has hit African Americans more. I am 1 degree of separation from, I believe at this point, 7 or 8 COVID deaths. So it's not something where I'm like, it's not happening. No, it's happening. And all those folks were Black. One is one of my second cousins actually passed away from it. And it's something that's going on in our community. So if I'm seeing it happen, I would not be responsible if I didn't say, you should wear a mask to protect yourself and and for those who are not at risk, to protect others. It's not hurting us to put it on when we're in a store. You don't have to wear it when you're outside or in your car. Do you see a lot of people wearing it in their car? I wouldn't recommend doing that. But
what are you doing?
I don't know.
Windows up, mask on.
It happens almost every day.
Right.
But because of that, I think that's important. As far as staying sheltered or what have you, there's enough data out there that tells us how to do this well. Basically, the 6 feet thing, we know that there's evidence that shows us that the virus stays, depending on how heavy the droplets, between 6 feet and 10 feet in the air. Other than that, it's falling to the ground. So just maintaining safe distance, not going indoors where people don't have masks on or where people are talking and doing a whole bunch of stuff. Wear your mask and just operate and just be safe until we figure this thing out. If COVID was literally like the flu, where it was just like, a cold and it's okay, COVID is doing so many different things to people's bodies. Like the gentleman, I don't know if you heard about the gentleman whose leg was amputated.
No, I didn't.
I don't know if you all have Googled. Oh, yes. Wow. He was a Broadway singer. His leg was amputated. He's been under for 3 months. He just died this week. His lungs looked like they had holes in them. There was a young girl whose lungs were destroyed after COVID. Google her lungs. She had a lung transplant and things like that. And when I saw what it did to people's lungs, I was like, you know what? I'm going to wear a mask. Because we don't know. I'm not going to sit here and see something like that. And I don't want to risk it and say and roll the dice and say, hey, it's not going to be me. Yep. People say it's like hitting the lottery. I'm like, I don't want to hit that lottery. So I'm just going to wear a mask. That's fine. But we just it's because it has so many different outcomes and it's mutating and folks know that and we don't understand it just yet. I just rather, for myself, be safe and stay away from folks. I enjoy myself. I get out. I go walk around the man-made lake that's near my neighborhood and I enjoy myself. So I've been fine. I don't think it's that heavy a restriction where it's stopping our lives. And we want to be safe, and we want to make sure we do the right thing.
Do you think it's worth shutting down the economy again? What do we do if the numbers are spiking like crazy right now, right? Again, many places, and even places where it wasn't spiking before. If this was months ago, less than this scenario caused us to shut the world down. We're worse than we've ever been, it seems. What do we do? Economy, health, safety, both? What do we do?
So let me tell you one thing. Folks who are dying from it, which is the older population, would rather you choose their health than the economy. So I'll say that first. The younger folks would probably rather you choose the economy because they want to see their 401k continue to survive.
Right.
That's reality. But what I will say is, I just think we dropped the ball from the beginning. You can't, in a place that's so connected with 50 states, 48 of them being in one area, have 48 different plans and expect it not to be this. Imagine had we done a real shutdown in the very beginning and actually just went ahead and eradicated it. When you look at our map compared to everyone else, it's pretty sad. Everyone else is like down here, we're up here. And that's because we didn't have a consensus and plan from Washington that was one that folks were willing to buy into. In the beginning, I think most people were willing to buy into this. When they start hearing mixed messages and, you can wear a mask, but on Twitter, I'm gonna say you don't need to wear a mask. When I'm in front of Dr. Fauci, I'm gonna say one thing, but then when I get on Twitter, I'm gonna say revolt and take over Virginia. Like, you can't provide those mixed messages to people, and I think that's why it's become political. Because in the beginning, everyone was willing to sit down for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden, the messages start changing. So as it relates to right now, I think there are ways to do it that are healthy. I think the main focus should be isolating and making sure those who have autoimmune conditions or who are at risk, whether it's have diabetes or the older population, that those folks are sheltering in place. What Switzerland's doing, right? And then they're letting the younger population continue to interact. And then they're also doing contact tracing to make sure that when they do identify someone, they're putting them in their home. And they've done a pretty good job of maintaining it. I don't think you need complete government shutdown, but I do think you need to use your data and identify where the hot pockets are and begin to hone in those areas to make sure that we're trying to eradicate this thing. Because other folks are doing it. They're having other discussions now, and we're still talking about this, and now people are telling us not to fly to their countries. Yeah.
I think it is important for us to know, and we have to look back at what happened to think about how we're going to move forward, right? We still don't have a national plan. People say we're the greatest nation in the world, and what we look like were a bunch of little camps. And yes, states have rights, and we're all for that, but there's a reason for the federal government, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. There's a reason for leadership.
I can drive from Maryland to DC to Virginia in 30 minutes, depending on where I am in that area. So you can't have separate things can't have separate plans in regions and things like that. It may have been worked better had they done regional plans, right? The Midwest at the time may not have needed the level of lockdown that we needed because it wasn't out there as much. They could have done it by region, but it wasn't done that way. It was done every state for themselves. Some states acted in a way that I believe was responsible. I think I live in a state that did, in Maryland, even though we have a Republican governor. He was about the data, following the facts.
Our state as well.
Ohio, other states were opposite.
Yep.
And now we're seeing it. And I remember talking to a friend, and they were talking about opening up Texas a couple months ago. And I talked to him and I said, if they open up Texas, contact me in July because the numbers are going to spike. Wow. And he was like, no, it's not. Everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, what data are you looking at?
Right.
And what are we doing now, right now, the spikes?
Reversing.
We're the highest number since it started like a couple days ago. And it's like, are you serious? So it also shows that we are a very individualistic culture in America. And we're thinking about ourselves when other countries are more communal and more about community. So they're like, I got to protect my community, not just myself. And here we're like, oh, I want to do what I want to do. I want to get my nails.
I agree. We are an individualist nation. I think even for me, from my faith perspective, as a Christian, I think we don't realize that this isn't how things happen from the beginning of time. This is not people, one nation under God. God was not every individual gets stuff, right? You get a car, you get a car. He was speaking to a nation and a group and a land he was always trying to, and every time he reset, even when he reset it, Noah and all, he reset it back to do something for a group of people. And we have an American, I have rights, but I have the right, and this is my right. We act like that's a God thing. God is not like you have the right to do everything. That's not godly. Like God is like, it's a theocracy. God is like, I tell you what to do, and I run this show, and it's my kingdom, right? So it's tough for me because I think who needs God with government is something I've been thinking about a lot. It's like we're so wrapped up in how things go, and then the American way, and we think the American way is the best because we're rich. Right? We're a rich nation, but we're lacking in so much. There's so much more richness in communal societies and families. And I'm not talking about socialists or communists. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just coming together as people, loving each other and doing what's best, loving my neighbor. I'm going to wear a mask because that's loving to my neighbor, and I'm not just going to think about myself. So I love that. Damon Thomas said, but yet we have two pandemics we are dealing with, the mask and the badge. We have not talked about that yet. Police brutality. Help us understand, what are you going to do to help with this issue if you get elected?
First of all, I hope that issue is handled before I get elected, because right now there's a bill that is in front of Congress that they're trying to figure out. The concerns I have about that, I'm going to answer the question.
Sure.
Pretend like it doesn't happen. I have concerns that bill is not a bill that they've been working on together. And the reality is, if you want to do this, you have to work together to do this. Democrats can't create a bill, Republicans can't create a bill and throw it to the other one. They have to work on this together. And this is making me very upset that this is the issue we want to fight over and not work together on. This is the one we need to work together on. And both sides have things that they're willing to compromise on. And here we need to start with where we can get some stuff done and not have this push out a few years. So let's say, for example, it doesn't happen in a few years, or in next year is not in. What I do believe needs to happen is that a lot of the things in the bill are very important. One is looking at how we allocate funding to police departments. I am not going to use the word defund the police because I think words like that cause people to stop talking to you and stop listening to you. And if you're going to be in a place where you're passing legislation, you need to learn how to talk a language that is for folks to be able to have conversation and we can work on things. So what I do think needs to happen is we have to look at the way the budget is done in any government entity, period, and say, all right, what does the data say? Are we doing what we need to do? Are we working? How much time are we spending on mental health calls? How much time are we spending on these issues that can be handled by someone else? We know police officers don't want to deal with those issues, and they have so many of them. So if we can show in their budgets, they're spending 10 to 15% of their time focusing on folks living with mental illness. Why don't we move that to a mental illness division or pull a mental illness division into the police force that can work with the police officers and go with them? There are so many ways to do this that are not rocket science. We're not asking for you to build a new country, build a new Rome, build a new police way to police do everything. There's just simple things that we can implement that can allow us to change this. Even the things about making sure that folks can sue a police officer in a civil case who has caused harm or killed someone who is unarmed. I'm not saying you should get rid of or take away immunity for everything, because that's not wise. Like, in reality, that just doesn't work. And we can think about that in our own jobs. Most people who are in work, and especially in government, are protected from being sued for stuff when they make mistakes. However, if your mistake is grossly enough where someone dies or someone is hurt, someone is maimed, or something happening at that level, yeah, you shouldn't have immunity to that, and someone should be able to seek damages against you. So I just think we have to look at the issues that we all can agree upon and work from there, and not have a list of things that we know are not going to pass. Because to me, a lot of that stuff is pandering and a political theater to make people feel like, oh, the Democrats are doing something. No, the Democrats did that because they knew it wasn't going to pass, but it makes them look good.
Yes.
And I'm sorry I said that. That's the reality.
That's
and the Republicans do it too.
Yep.
Because in reality, let me break this down real quick. We've had a Republican House and Republican Congress at one point. We had a Democratic House, Democratic Congress. Why did none of the big issues they always talk about pass during those times?
Great question.
Because they don't want it to. That's not real. That's
wow.
Political theater. It's literally for us to listen to the sound bites. We hear the sound bites, and guess what we're going to say? We're going to say gay rights. We're going to say abortion. We're going to say gun control. We're going to say Black Lives Matter. We're going to say all these buzzwords that are buzzwords. But at the end of the day, they know they put up bills sometimes just to get make the other side look bad or to win elections and what have you. I'm not interested in that. If I'm putting up something, it's because I know it's going to pass, and I work with someone to get that done. And it's a realistic thing that we can walk towards. And that's how I feel about that subject. Sorry if folks don't agree, but that's the reality of what we're dealing with. Because they want to do it. Guess what they would have done when they had the House and Congress? They would have been done.
Talk about it.
They didn't want to do that.
Go ahead.
They know what it really is.
Amber Ivey, we love it. We love it. We love it. We love it. Real talk with Amber Ivey on the next episode of Lucas Live. We're going to have you back and do this again. This is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I do want to get to one more question. There's a wonderful young lady on here, Ari Sharman. I happen to know her, love her. She might be my daughter. I don't know, but she's wonderful, wonderful young lady. Brilliant young lady. She said, can we address the lack of planning for our children to go back to school? You started to talk about that a little bit. The lack of planning. What are we supposed to do here? It's almost time. Walmart got the stuff out. Target got the stuff out. I'm like, oh no.
And I'm like, Target didn't realize this was going to happen because they about to lose a lot of money.
Right. What are they supposed to do? So what do you think? What should we do? What are your thoughts on it? What about the planning about in a month we're supposed to send our kids and potentially college students back to school?
I doubt they're going back to school.
Okay.
But what I'm going to say, this is not the answer you probably want to hear. We have to make a decision, and we have to make a plan for our kids, because at this time period, because of the way it's set up right now, and the education is at is state administered, or what have you, and locally administered, depending on where you are, we have to make decisions for our kids. And in this situation, we have to think outside the box. Like, I would imagine, this is just me off the cuff, I would imagine a world where if we know we're waiting for them to figure it out, imagine if 4 parents all agreed they're quarantining and they're not leaving their homes outside of allowing their kids to rotate homes, so that parents could actually have a model of a work from or teach from home model where the kid could actually still get training at different homes in the community or what have you. We have to break out of thinking and waiting for the government to do something for us and actually start planning and putting things out there for ourselves.
Wow.
The government will not save us. There's one thing I always say: we have individual responsibility, community responsibility, and government responsibility. In this situation, the government is not doing as well as we would hope they would, and they don't know either, right? This is a situation where they're not getting guidance from the top. No one wants to make their own decisions, so no one's pulling trigger. Too many people are responsible, so no one is responsible. So because of that, there's some planning that we have to do on our own. And at this point, I would say get very creative and think outside the box of how you're going to train your kids, because I don't want to have a gap year where this literally puts our kids back a few years. And it's kind of like when kids who graduated, or kids who were, let me say this, kids who graduated when the recession was ending and couldn't get a job. Those kids or youth are experiencing something different. The kids who also at that time were 16, a lot of them did not get a job in high school. Now you see them entering the workplace and they don't understand basic skill sets. So we want to make sure that this glitch in the matrix does not cause harm to our kids and doesn't continue to harm them as they move forward in the future. So we just need to think about that in a different way. I would not wait for someone else to tell me what to do. I would go ahead and create a plan.
Amber Ivey, you are something else. Amber Ivey, you are something else. I'll tell you, it has been a pleasure. There are more questions.
Same here.
Ladies and gentlemen, you guys, please follow Amber Ivey, support Amber Ivey. Go to www.ivy2020.com. I don't know if anybody puts the www in anymore, but check out ivy2020.com. You can follow her on Instagram.
That's Ivey.
IVEY2020.com. You guys see it here on the screen. Follow her on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's right here at the bottom of the screen. You guys have been looking at it the whole time. Make sure you don't just leave this broadcast and leave the thought of everything we've talked about today. When you leave this broadcast, go watch the replay and make sure you take these things down. You go follow her. You go check her out. You support what she's trying to do. She's running as an independent in a very important district in Maryland, the Southern District. One more time, Amber, before we go, if you could just tell us what platform are you standing on? Why run as an independent? And what do you plan to do if and when you win this seat?
Yep. So my platform is pretty simple: future of families, future of work, and future of communities. And that's basically preparing us for how we're going to interact in this world in the very near future. I'm running as an independent because current partisan politics are not working for the people. A lot of the stuff I said today is why it's not working. Some of it is a game to some people, and they've been in it for so long, they haven't realized how harmful that is to our country. And at the end of the day, what I'm going to do when I get in is make sure that I find allies in Congress, that I work with people in Congress, and that I try to bridge the gap in that big divide that we have right now. I'm not interested in fighting either side. I want to work together and actually get things done for this country because we deserve it and the country deserves it. Amazing.
Thank you so much. So well put. You guys are like a nice little elevator pitch. That was good. We really appreciate it. You were phenomenal. Somebody in the comments says she didn't miss a beat. You did a great job.
Thank you.
You were just, this was a fun.
You wouldn't know it, but these make me nervous, and I'm always sweating.
Interesting. I didn't know you were turning on fans and getting water before the thing.
Stage fright. Yes, I do. I have horrible stage fright.
Well, I one of the things that a mentor once said, or someone I really look up to once said, personality does not dictate skill set. The things that we naturally kind of feel uncomfortable about, and it may not always be personality, but those natural feelings don't always dictate what we are able to accomplish when we put our mind to it. You told me before the show that you're somebody who gets things done. And I believe you're getting this done today. You were phenomenal, wonderful, excellent guest. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Miss Amber Ivey. Make sure you guys go follow her, check her out. She was wonderful. We're so excited. It was a great time. Thank you guys so much. Hey, make sure you guys check us out tomorrow night. We're back on at 7 p.m. with Mr. Kyle Stone, running for Stark County prosecutor here in Ohio, here in Stark County. A friend of mine, wonderful young man, lawyer, just a powerful guy, and he's running for Stark County prosecutor. You may have questions for him. You may want to know, what platform is he standing on? What is he talking about? What is he thinking about doing? As a young black man, what position does he play in the criminal justice system if he wins the position of prosecutor? It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful show and a great time. And then don't miss us Thursday night. We have Officer Lamar Sharp. Be a better me. Yes, Officer Lamar Sharp. He went live last night, did a phenomenal job. I shared it on my page, talking about some of the issues he's facing as a police officer. We're going to get into it. He said yesterday during a protest that he was at, as a police officer, that a white woman came up to him and said, black lives don't matter to him, blue lives matter, or something like that. He was like, this white woman took my black card and gonna tell me I'm blue and not black. He was like, what is going on in the world today? It was just a great conversation that he had. He also has a podcast. I look forward to hearing more about the podcast. I believe it comes out tomorrow. If you're not following Officer Lamar Sharp, make sure you follow him. He will be on Thursday. And Thursday is also my birthday. So we're going to have some fun. We're going to celebrate my birthday this Thursday. So I look forward to having you guys and seeing you guys then. Thank you guys for your love and support. Keep sharing. Keep talking about Lucas Live. And we'll continue to bring you guys great guests. We'll continue to bring you education, motivation, liberation.